Candela Obscura is a fantastic TTRPG that you can use at your table for anything like intrigue and investigating paranormal activities. This is something that is very similar to Call of Cthulhu and Monster of the Week, and it uses the Illuminated World's D6 system. The quick start guide for Candela Obscura was just released yesterday on May 25th, and I'm going to be going over what you find in this quick start guide and exactly how you play Candela Obscura so that you can get started at your own table. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, Critical Role did a live stream of their very first episode of Candela Obscura on May 25th. If you haven't checked it out yet, check out their YouTube channel or their Twitch channel VOD. And Critical Role created a perfectly made how-to video on Candela Obscura's very basic explanation. If you want to go check that out and come back to this video, I'm going to be doing a lot more of a deep dive into the mechanics and what you can expect with your characters, abilities, and all of that stuff. First up, what is Candela Obscura? First, we need to go over a few world building rules so that you can understand exactly what this world looks like within Candela Obscura. For the rules of the world and the normal people that live in it, people don't believe in magic. Myths and legends are rooted from magical happenings, and there is a magical barrier between the world as we know it and the beyond. This magical barrier is called the flare, where the flare is weakest and the boundary between the beyond and the human world is thinnest is called thinnings. This is where the energy of the beyond enters into the human world, and that is what we know as magic. What is magic? Magic can infuse objects, places, or beings, and these things are known as phenomenon. These thinnings that allow this magic to enter into the human world, if wide enough, can also let in magical creatures and monsters. Bleed is something that happens often. You can take bleed damage, and bleed is something that is a corruptive force from powerful magic that can radiate from different types of phenomena. If a person takes too much bleed, they can become corrupted, they can be taken over by supernatural forces, or they can just flat out die. People that are able to control magic is extremely rare in this world. However, most Candela Obscura members use artifacts in order to use that magic that is imbued in those items and use whatever magical abilities that those items have. Now, Candela Obscura. What is that? Candela Obscura in this world is an organization made up of many members that investigate supernatural phenomena. They try to protect the world by securing and studying these dangers that they find and investigate. And this organization of Candela Obscura has a hierarchy. At the top of this hierarchy is a council of light keepers, which is basically the leaders of Candela Obscura. These are the people that direct the organization's resources. The Light Keepers are also the ones that send out all of these paranormal investigators to go around and find these phenomena, capture them, and bring them back to study. These parties of investigators are known as circles. There are many different chapters of Candela Obscura all throughout the world, and each of them have access to the organization's transdimensional vault known as the Fourth Pharos. The Fourth Pharos is a fourth iteration of a lighthouse stronghold in which Candela Obscura uses this and its vaults to keep all of the more powerful books, magic items, artifacts, all of these different things that are potentially dangerous away from everyone else and locked within the Fourth Pharos. These phenomena are kept safe by centuries-old, constantly turning astrolabes. This is what an astrolabe looks like. I say that because I never knew that this is what the name was, so this is what it's called. So yeah, here you go. If you ended up watching the live stream of Critical Role, you would have seen a lot of those in the background, mainly the one right behind Matt Mercer. All of that aside, what do you need to get started with Candela Obscura? First, you need 9 D6s. 3 of them need to be different colors. These 3 different colored dice are going to be known as your gilded dice. You are also going to need a character sheet for each player and a field guide, which is basically a quick reference for each of the players to see how the rules work and what they need to be aware of. All right, let's dig in. Actions are the things that your characters can do, obviously. There are 9 different actions that are categorized by 3s under 3 different types of drives. These drives are nerve, cunning, and intuition. Under nerve, you have move, which is running, dodging, and navigating through different places. You have strike, which is punching, breaking something, knocking something down. And you have control, which is driving, shooting, and any type of finesse action that you would like to take. Under cunning, you have sway, which is convincing, commanding somebody, or consorting. Under read, you have interpreting body language, spotting lies, and gathering motives. Under hide, you have sneaking, distracting, or sleight of hand. Under intuition, you have survey, which is searching, tracking, and spotting. You have focus, which is inspecting, analyzing, and remembering something. And you have sense, which is attuning, channeling, or revealing something. Each of these 9 actions have 3 different action levels that you can have. Typically, all of the pre-generated characters have a maximum of 2 of these action points filled out, but these action points denote how many dice you are allowed to roll for the action that you are taking. For example, in Strike, I am level 2, I have 2 action points in that, which means that I will roll 2d6s and then take the highest result. If you don't have a level in a specific action, you can still roll those, but for these rolls, you will roll 2d6s and then you will take the lowest result of that. This roll, you won't be able to crit. So what do all of these rolls mean? That's where we get into the Illuminated World system and Candela Obscura's dice rolling. This graphic quickly explains exactly the results of all of the rolls that you can get. 1 to 3 is a failure, 4 to 5 is a mixed success, you succeed at a cost, and a 6 is a full success. If you were to roll multiple 6s, that is a critical success. Basically, all you need to know is that the more dice you have, the more likely you're going to succeed. I actually like this kind of system because it really leans into each player having their own expertise, their own specialty, and you don't have one player being just perfect at everything. Some players are not good at sway, they're not good at sensing, they're not good at control. That's why it's good to have a nice little balanced circle so that you're able to succeed in your investigations. However, with only having a 6 as a full success and a 4 and a 5 as a mixed success, it makes me believe that this TTRPG is going to be very difficult to succeed without any serious repercussions. With each dice roll, there are different ways that you can modify your dice and add more, one of them being drives. For each of these 3 drives, again, you have nerve, cunning, and intuition. Your character has a certain amount of drive points for each of these. These drive points are a resource that you can use to add d6s to any action roll under that drive. Each drive point adds 1 d6, and you can only have a maximum of 6 d6 for any roll. Additionally, any other players at your table can aid your roll by using one of their drive points to give you 1 d6. However, it is a maximum of 1 per player, but multiple players can use multiple drive points for you. So one person can give you 1, another person can give you another, and another person can give you another, to a maximum of 6. The only caveat to that is that to do this, you need to really explain how your character is aiding the other player, and the GM has the deciding factor on whether or not you are able to aid them. Suppose I'm attempting a hide action. I'm trying to hide away from a monster that is currently looking for me, and I only have 1 action point in hide. This is a very dangerous situation, and I may end up using all of my drive points to make sure that I am going to succeed at this. In this graphic, it shows that I have 3 drive points that are currently available, so I will use all 3 of my cunning drive points, and I will then roll 4d6. Now suppose a friend is going to be helping me. Say that you are going to be throwing a rock across the room so that the monster goes to that distraction and doesn't see that I'm here. That player would be able to use their drive point, which means that now my 4d6 increases to 5d6. I roll these d6s, I see which one has the highest result, and I take that. Now, drive points are replenishable, and the way to replenish them is by using a gilded action. Gilded actions are marked by the diamond right next to each of those actions. If it is filled in, that means that it is your gilded action. Should you use a gilded action, you can choose to replace one of your standard dice with a gilded die, one of those different colored die that we were talking about earlier. Whatever the role of the gilded die, should you choose that as your result of the action, you then gain 1 drive point in the associated drive. For example, if I were to make a strike action and I use that as my gilded action, I would then replace one of the 2d6s that I already get with one of my gilded die. Suppose I roll a 6 and a 4, the 4 being the gilded die. I could take that mixed success, regain one of my drive points, or I can choose to take the 6, which is a full success. That is completely up to you at the time of the roll, and it always depends on the situation. Should I take the 4 on that gilded die, that means that I will gain 1 drive point in my nerve drive. In the video that Critical Role made of the How to Play Candela Obscura's Quick Start Guide, they didn't really talk about what resistances are and what they do exactly, so here's a little bit more information on what resistances are. Resistances are used to change the outcome of any action roll. In order to do a resistance, you need to have a resistance point to use. Once you use this resistance point, you then re-roll whatever that action's dice are, and you take that result. The one caveat to a resistance roll is that you cannot use any of your drive points. You can, however, use your gilded die and regain a drive point through this resistance roll. And again, if you do not have any action points in your action, you can roll 2d6, taking the lowest result. After rolling this way, you must take the results. However, if it is an incredibly important roll, you can use another resistance point in that same drive to re-roll again. The amount of resistance points that you have is dependent on the max drive that your character has. For example, as a character that has taken the muscle roll, this is what your character's actions may look like. As you can see, the muscle has 2 resistances in nerve and 1 resistance in cunning. Suppose they fail a move roll, they can then decide to use one of their 2 resistance points to re-roll that move roll. However, even if they used a lot of drive points, they can only use 2d6s. One of these d6s can be a gilded die. Suppose this roll comes up with 2 1s, the muscle can then use their final resistance point to re-roll one more time. Suppose that the gilded die comes up with a 6 and the standard die comes with a 5, the muscle will then choose the 6, gaining an additional drive point and a full success. Now regarding abilities, each pre-gen character has their own abilities on the character sheet. Each role and specialty has their own types of abilities. So if you'd like to take a look at each of them, you can check out Candela Obscura's starter guide that's online. You can download that, take a look at the pre-gen characters, and each of them will have that on their character sheets. Currently, the pre-gen characters only have 2 role abilities and 3 specialty abilities to choose from. However, there will be 3 role abilities in the full game and 6 total specialty abilities for each specialty in the full game. You'll also have circle abilities that give your circle certain perks while on an assignment or leveling up. But we'll be talking more deeply about this in the next video when we're talking about character creation and advancement. For now, here's a list of all the abilities for your circle that you can take a look at. Just below your character's abilities is your character's illumination keys. These are roleplay goals you have while playing your character during any assignment. These vary from role to role, but some examples are running into danger, acting bizarre, and doing something illegal. You want to keep track of each time that you follow your illumination keys because at the end of the assignment, you count how many players fulfilled their keys, and that gains you and your circle members points towards leveling up. The only thing left on your character sheet are marks, scars, relationships, and your gear. In the Quick Start Guide, your connections and relationships don't really have very much sway in the way that you play your game. However, in the full game, it is noted in the Quick Start Guide that there is going to be specific rules on how to build your connections and relations with the other players in your circle. For now, go ahead and just write down the names of each of the characters and your relation to them. In regards to gear, you don't choose this until you are already on the assignment. This is something that they said is supposed to show that your investigator is extremely prepared for any assignment that is given to them, And so you are able to pick up to 3 pieces of gear while on the assignment, just to say that you had already brought it. I think this is very interesting because nobody likes to bring a piece of equipment that is not useful. This is a great way to deal with that and make everybody feel like they are important. Now we come to marks and scars. Marks are the way that your character tracks how much damage they have taken, whether by body, brain, or bleed. Body is obviously physical harm, brain is strain and stress, and bleed is harm caused by magic. Each of these marks have 3 total, and when you have 3 filled and you take another point of damage, that is when you get a scar. When that happens, you erase all of the 3 marks that you have in that category, your character is now incapacitated for that scene, and you add that scar to your character. Here are a few examples of scars that you might use for your character. Scars are here to represent a change in your character due to excessive damage. Similar to the 3 categories, there are 3 different types of scars. For a body scar, you can have a limp or a missing eye. For a brain scar, that can cause your character to become reckless or withdrawn or anxious. And for bleed scars, that can be something like your character's hair falls out and now tendrils begin to grow. After jotting down the scar and what that looks like for your character, you take 1 action point from one of the actions that you already have an action point in, and you replace it into another action. This is to reflect how your character has changed due to the scar. The Quick Start Guide makes a point to explain that brain scars don't necessarily mean that you get a mental illness or become insane. And they're right. In everyday life, if you were to take stress or strain to your brain, you don't automatically develop schizophrenia. Nor does that mean that you become evil and insane. Much like normal humans, when we experience a brain scar, in real life we typically change our outlook on life or change our behavior. This is what Candela Obscura is trying to emulate by taking 1 action point and changing it into another. For example, your character might have used an artifact to try to trap a monster within it. However, in doing so, they accidentally killed a civilian. This might cause a brain scar in your character. You may represent this scar by taking a point from Sense, which is dealing with artifacts of magic, and you might change it to a strike action, so that you're not focusing so much on how to use artifacts. You may not want to use them anymore, and now you're focusing more on your physical capability of stopping things with your body rather than magic. Or the opposite might be true. You might shy away from your physical training and focus more on how to use artifacts effectively so that you may never use it to kill a civilian again. Reasonings can change for why you take 1 action point and change it into another. However, the one point that is made is that taking a brain scar or any other type of scar does not mean that you instantly turn insane and evil. Before reaching 3 marks in any category, you're able to heal all of your marks through Candela Obscura's resources. Between each assignment, you're able to use up to 2 of the resources that you would have chosen when creating your circle. This number is 1 plus however number of players is in your circle. Stitch heals all the marks on one character. Refresh fills all drives and resistances for one character. And Train gives one player a bonus die that they can use for any roll in the next session. When you use these resources, like drive points, you just erase the top bar of these resources, leaving the max bars alone. These resources only refill when you level up, so be careful how often you use them. The final thing to talk about are rolls and consequences. Rolls are prompted when the results of a player's actions might be unclear. They make sure to note in the Quick Start Guide that it's not a roll to make for walking down the street or trying to climb a ladder. Anything mundane automatically happens. However, any of these actions being done while being chased by a monster or something that creates stress to the situation may prompt an action roll by the GM. For any action roll, the GM will set the stakes of low, normal, or high, which indicates the danger of the consequences if they fail. So, for example, a typical action might look like this. A player decides to leap from one building to the next. The GM prompts a move roll from the player and sets the stakes to high because there is a high danger of falling to their death. The player then rolls an amount of d6s equal to their move action rating, and depending on the success or failure, the GM then describes what happens. Fighting as well is something that's rather vague in the quick start guide. It's not something that Candela Obscura focuses on, so how you do that is a little bit more vague in the quick start guide. I think it'll be a lot more clear if we continue watching Candela Obscura on Critical Role and what they do with that. However, from what it does say in the quick start guide, it seems like it is something where you do a strike action versus the monster's strike action, and if they hit you, you take a certain type of mark, whether it's body, brain, or bleed, and from that, it continues down like that. That is pretty much it for Candela Obscura's mechanics and how you run the game. Going forward, I'm going to be making a video about character creation and what we might be looking forward to when they release the full game, as well as another video about Candela Obscura's world and the background story of the Fairlands and what that looks like and how you can add that to your game, or you could even possibly make up your own world using Candela Obscura. Regardless, if you found value in this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and if you're on TikTok, like the video, share it with your friends, follow me for more videos on Candela Obscura, and I will see you on the next video.